worth a listen. So this is a very jazzy episode of the Investigator Games with Jim Culver, jazz trumpeter extraordinaire. So before we get into Jim a little bit more, just a couple of things about the Investigator Games for those of you who are new to these videos. So it's called that because it's like the Hunger Games. So essentially we put each investigator through the gathering with their starter decks, and depending on how they do, we put them in a league table from the best performing investigator right down to the worst performing investigator. It's been a hell of a ride so far. There's been upsets, there's been triumphs, there's been tragedies, and a little bit of controversy along the way. So it's all been happening. Jim is the final investigator from the Dunwich legacy. So the other exciting thing is next week we'll be starting the Carcosa investigators, and we'll kick off with Mark Harrigan next week. But anyway, that's enough about next week. We're here with Jim. So the other thing I would say is spoiler warning: if you haven't played Arkham Horror the card game, you haven't played The Gathering, I would heartily recommend that you do that first in real life before watching this. I am assuming the people who are watching this have played before and have played this particular scenario, and indeed played the Night of the Zealot campaign before. So that's just a spoiler warning to kick things off. So yes, Jim Culver, like I said, mystic survivor and jazz trumpeter extraordinaire. I spoke to Jim, as I always do, speak to everyone in the green room. I had to apologise to Jim. Ashcan Pete had left things a bit messy. As I said last week, he asked if he could stay over in the green room, and I said yes, but him and Duke left it in a bit of a mess, I have to say. But then again, I can understand he was in a very positive mood after, no spoilers there, but after what happened last week. But anyway, again, this week was a bit of a musical sit down and chat, like last week was. Last week was John Denver. This was a little bit different. Jim gave us a bit of an interlude with some music from various styles of jazz, traditional through to hard bop, bebop, fusion, and avant-garde. So really enjoyed listening to Jim do a bit of everybody, a bit of Miles Davis, a bit of Louis Armstrong. Very diverse, very, very talented musician. The weird thing was, though, while he was playing, don't know what happened, but I started jumping up and down and dancing, which was very, very strange. I didn't seem to have any control over my legs. I just started dancing, and the room got noticeably colder and darker, like there were other presences in the room. So that freaked me out a lot. Didn't seem to freak Jim out. He's sort of used to it, but it was very strange. And I guess Jim is a mystic, so there's something very, very odd going on when he does play the trumpet. However, after I'd finished dancing, I did feel somewhat uplifted. So there's some kind of effect there going on that I did feel a lot better afterwards, but it was a bit freaky at the time. Now, I asked Jim about how he feels this is going to go. He's feeling pretty positive. He thinks mystics do pretty well at the Gathering. And so he's fairly positive about that. He also knows the ghouls. He knows more about ghouls than some of the other investigators. He has a feeling he is going to see the Flesh Eater or the Icy Ghoul this time, which, as you know, might make a big difference, because at the moment you either have to finish the Gathering with 4 victory points in less than 8 turns, or you need 5 victory points or more to actually get to the top of the table. That is now the standard that's been set. So it's getting tougher and tougher as we move through. Jim feels he is going to see the Icy... He knows more about Icy Ghouls than others, and he feels they are going to turn up. So we'll see about that. So, yes, Jim Culver, very good willpower, as you would expect from a mystic. Pretty good intelligence and fight, so he's good from that perspective. He doesn't have great agility, though, so he's not the world's most agile investigator, which means he's going to be looking to with the Ghoul Priest, evasion's going to be more difficult. I think it's going to be really setting things up with his spells and other things to take it to the Ghoul Priest. That's probably the likely way this is going to go down. Now, Jim has interesting abilities around modifying the Skull token, which, look, I have to say is really, really good in later campaigns and scenarios, particularly those ones where the Skull token modifier changes as you get more horror. So, for example, if you have 3 or more horror on you, the Skull token goes from -1 to -3. That's where Jim can really shine, because he essentially can treat any modifier of the Skull token as a 0. So in the Gathering, though, that's less of an issue, particularly playing solo, because the Skull token is -1 per ghoul at your location, and when you're playing solo, most of the time it's a -1, maybe sometimes -2. So, I mean, I guess -1 to 0 means that he's still got a better effect, and if he is engaged with a ghoul, he's more likely to achieve a 0. But the effect is not as strong as it might be in later campaigns, Carcosa in particular. So, yes, his strength is not as strong as it might be in other campaigns, but that's okay. It's still an important one, and there are Skull tokens in the Chaos bag, and we can assume that they are 0. So that means he's much more likely to succeed rather than a -1 modifier. So -2, for example, is -1, -2 are more likely to be 0s generally over the course of the scenario. Having a look at his starter deck, and as I always say, these starter decks are less than optimum. This has got an interesting mix of Survivor and Mystic in it. I drew the Paranoia random basic weakness, which is fine. You just lose your resources, so it's not that terrible. I'm hoping the Trumpet pops out, because the Trumpet's great, because when you do reveal a Skull token, you heal a horror. So that's an added benefit. Yeah, so it's always nice to have the Trumpet on hand, literally on hand, but it does take up a hand slot. So there's quite a lot of competition for the hand slot. There are knives, and there are flashlights. So the hand slots are at a bit of a premium in this deck, particularly when something like also Ritual Candles, which is, if you read the notes that come with his standard deck from Fantasy Flight Games, they've put 2 of these in there, and this is supposed to be one of his signature cards, because if you reveal a Skull token, or any of the other tokens in this case, but the Skull token in particular, you get a +1 skill value. So there's a bit of synergy going on here if you've got the Trumpet and the Ritual Candles. But the problem with that is you can't have a knife, and you can't have a flashlight out at the same time. So that's going to make it quite challenging, I think, to manage just all those hand slots and when all that happens. So we're going to have to see how that goes. The ally slots, there's a couple of good allies in his deck. Peter Silvestri, really good because, of course, as I said, his agility is not great, so Peter gives you an extra point of agility, so that pushes up his agility to a more respectable 3, and heals horror, so he's great to get out. And Arcane Initiate's fantastic as well, particularly in the early part of the game, I would say. Playing the Gathering now, getting Doom is not a problem. There's usually plenty of time, particularly if we're trying to get in before turn 8. So she's really good for getting spell cards out. And the one card we are going to need if we're going to kill this Ghoul Priest is Shriveling. So really the most likely outcome of killing the Ghoul Priest is having Shriveling and Holy Rosary in play, because then we will have, a willpower of 5 versus Ghoul Priest's 4. And on top of that, if we draw a skull, it's less impactful with shriveling because of our ability, because we can treat it. It's still a skull, actually. It doesn't change it. Just treat the modifier on skull tokens. So, so actually, I just realized, I just thought for a second that it means you can treat a skull token as a 0 token. You can't. It's still a skull token. But there would be benefits if you drew a skull token. So even though you might take a horror, if you've got the trumpet out, you can then heal the horror, and you get a whole lot of benefits from that. So there are some nice synergies. I think the key thing here will be to get out all of those pieces for that synergy. So if we've got shriveling, we've got Holy Rosary out, we've got the trumpet out, and we have ritual candles out, then we've got a really quite a nice engine there to make things happen. The problem will be that we only have 4 charges on shriveling, so we can't be using those charges on fighting other ghouls and things as well. So it's going to be a little bit tricky to manage all of that and make sure that all those things happen at the right time. Otherwise, Jim's going to have a difficult time of it. So a bit of a tricky hand to to sort of work through. But if we can get all of the bits and pieces, all of the cogs in the engine all operating at the same time, could be very effective. But it is a bit reliant on all of those synergies. So Jim might be confident. I'm feeling like this deck is not really optimized. I would have 2 shrivelings and various other bits and pieces, but we will see how we go with this particular deck. So I'm going to close and shuffle that deck. And here we are in turn 1, the investigation phase. I did speak to the Ghoul Priest. He's a bit strange about Jim. He was usually, Ghoul Priest is like very happy to talk about how he's going to bring the pain to the investigators. He was a bit more circumspect about Jim. There's some relationship between Jim and the ghouls, and I'm not sure what that is. But anyway, he was a little bit reticent to say much. Leader Chandler was a little bit different. Leader Chandler doesn't like Jim at all. Oh, I don't like that trumpeter and his devil's music. She's not really a keen fan of jazz music. Thinks that it comes from a unholy place. So I think she's not expecting to see Jim ask her for help. But you never know what's going to happen. If we can get Peter Sylvester on board and we can evade the Ghoul Priest, then it would be helpful to maybe have Leader Chandler on board. So we'll just have to see how that goes. So it's nearly time to kick off. Let's first of all just read the opening pieces, as we always do. Agenda deck says, "What's going on? It's late at night. You're holed up in your study researching the bloody disappearances that have been taking place in the region. A few hours into your research, you hear the sound of strange chanting coming from your parlour down the hall. At the same time, you hear dirt churning as if something were digging beneath the floor. And trapped as you leap to investigate now, given the fact that Jim has an agility of 2, I don't think leap is quite the word. I think slowly get up might be the better way of saying it. As you slowly get up to investigate, the door to your study vanishes before your eyes, leaving behind only solid wall. You're trapped inside your study until you can find another way out." So there we go. That's the setup to the gathering. As I said, here we go. We've -X is the number of ghoul enemies at your location. This will be quite important because that will be a 0 no matter what for Jim. So that's an important thing. So before we kick off, we need to just draw a hand. I'm just going to take some water here. There we go. Okay, let's have a look at what we're going to get. This is my favorite part of the investigator games, is drawing those first cards that we get. And let's see what we get in our opening hand. And our opening hand has a knife. Well, that could be good at the beginning. The Ward of Protection. Well, that's always a handy card. Final Rhapsody, well, that's our weakness, so we'll leave that one out. This can be quite a nasty card. I didn't mention this before, but reveal 5 Chaos tokens, and for each skull or tentacles, we take 1 damage and 1 horror. So you've really got to be careful, because you might think, oh, I've got 3 horror and a couple of life, and you could draw this, and that could literally end the game. So you've always got to be mindful of that particular card. Ritual Candles, so that's part of that engine I was talking about, so that's good. Another Ritual Candles, well, I really don't think we need both unless we get Crypt Chilled. And Shriveling. So there we go, that's good, because we need Shriveling. Maybe not at the start, but we definitely need that card. So that's our 5 cards in our opening hand. Now of these cards, I'm thinking... what do we do here? I'm thinking we don't need both Ritual Candles, so I'm going to put that. I don't think we need the Ward of Protection at the beginning. I think I'll keep the Knife, because we may need to fight some ghouls before the Ghoul Priest, so at the very least we've got something to fight with. So I'll draw another couple more cards, and we get Arcane Studies. If we've got the resources, Arcane Studies can be helpful, because particularly if with Shriveling, we can then use our additional resources to really boost that up. And finally, Emergency Cash. So, yep, that's not bad. That's not a bad start, actually. I'll put these back into the deck. We'll shuffle that up. So here we go. Let's start with our first move here, and we're here in the study. 2 clues, 3 actions. So as always, the first thing we're going to do is get some things out onto the table. So for our first action, I'm going to spend a resource and bring out the Knife. So that's our first action. Our second action, I'm thinking that we... What's our... Got a 3. Yeah, we could bring out Arcane Studies. We don't need to bring out Shriveling yet. We could bring out Ritual Candles, because that's going to really help with any skull draws that we might get. So I might do that. I might, for my second action, I'm going to bring out Ritual Candles. So that's both of our hand slots now. As I said before, this is one of the issues. We've got both of our hand slots full. But that's okay, because we don't have anything else for hand slots at the moment. So this does 2 things. It means we can fight things, which is always handy. We've got a +1 modifier for any symbol we might reveal, including a skull symbol. And in addition to that, we can... if we get Crypt Chill, we can just throw away the Knife if we need to. So that was our second action. So our third action, we're going to investigate the study. And we're going to do that straight up, because we've got this in place. So we are a 3. The Shroud of the Study is a 2. So we need a -1 or better. Chaos Bag says... I've not brought out the Chaos Bag. Let me load up the Chaos Bag. Oh, I spent all this time opening things up, and I didn't bring out the Chaos Bag. Let's try that again. So we're a 3 intelligence. Shroud in the Study is 2. Chaos Bag says, yeah, -1. We succeed, and we get the first clue. Brilliant. Okay, so we're off and running. First round, first phase for Jim. Crowd's going wild. Everything's going really well. We can see here we brought out the Knife. We brought out the Ritual Candles. In fact, I just realized we got a +1 for that, so we more than aced it. Already the Ritual Candles are doing their bit. And we got our first clue. So that's the first action. So we'll be out of the study next turn. Enemy phase, or the enema phase, as I like to call it. Nothing in the enema phase. We move on to the upkeep phase. So we're back to 4 resources. We drew a flashlight. Now, we don't need a flashlight at the moment, but I tell you where we will need a flashlight, and that's down in the good old cellar. So this is where we're going to have to make a tough decision, because when we get down to the cellar, if we've still got the knife and the ritual candles, we're going to have to decide what we're going to do. If we bring out the flashlight, then one of those is going to have to go. So that's going to make things a little bit tricky. But anyway, that's what we got for our upkeep. All good. I'm thinking we'll try and get arcane studies out if our resources hold up, which they should do because we've got emergency cash. So let's see how we go. And we move into the first of many wonderful and happy mythos phases. And there's the first doom on what's going on. Got 2 more to go. So it is now time, drum roll, for the first encounter card. And the first encounter card is, yes, it's our favourite Ancient Evils, which in this scenario, in Midnight Masks, I don't know if you can have Ancient Evils in Midnight Masks, but anyway, in a lot of other scenarios, Ancient Evils is a pain in the bum because you've not got a lot of time. We've usually got plenty of time in the gathering, although we are trying to get everything done in 8 turns, so that just adds another doom to the good old agenda. So we'll add the doom. We go 2 dooms and take that away. So there we go. So we are now into the good old investigation phase. We'll put 3 actions onto Jim. So he's here in the study. So I think the first thing that we do is try and get this clue. So again, I don't think we need to commit anything to this, particularly because of the way the Chaos Bag is orientated with Ritual Candles and Jim anyway. So again, it's a 3 versus a 2, so it's a -1 or better. And the Chaos Bag says -2. So we actually fail that one. There we go. So let's give it another go. Chaos Bag says... Is that -2 again? Oh my goodness. Alright, we'll do it again. +1. There we go. So we got the final clue. There we go. So that was quite a frustrating turn for Jim. He actually had some difficulty finding that clue. He got -2 twice, which is unusual. I had to just check the the scrolling action list there to show that yes, -2 came out twice. That happens sometimes, and it's hard to know whether you've actually hit the keyboard right or it actually is the case. But we've got all our clues, but we're not going to move to the hallway yet, because if we do spawn some kind of ghoul in the study, or rats or something, we can auto-kill them by throwing in the clues next go. So let's leave it at that for our turn. So that was a bit of a frustrating turn. That didn't go as well as we would have hoped with 2 -2 draws, but that's okay. Let's move into the enema phase. There are no enemas or enemies to speak of. So we'll move into the upkeep phase and we get Cunning Distraction. Now this is actually a really good card if we want to get into the parlour and perhaps get Leader Chandler on board to help beat the Ghoul Priest, because we can automatically evade all enemies at your location. So that's a handy card. It's a very expensive card though. This artwork on this card is really strange. It looks like 3 winged baboons are all trying to eat a chicken. Is that right? Am I looking at that right? Or a turkey? It's strange. It's like Leader's thrown a turkey into the hallway and all these baboon-like creatures are all trying to eat them. Yeah, anyway. So not a bad card. This is our first Survivor card, actually. We've had no Rabbit's Feet. We've had no Luckies. They're really, really handy cards. So let's hope we get a few more of those as well. Okay, so moving on to the good old Mythos phase. I'm already up to 3 because of Ancient Evils. Thank you, Ancient Evils. So that flips. And it says, your house continues to change before your very eyes. The walls have decayed and the ground in many rooms has turned to dirt. It is almost as if you've been transported somewhere else entirely, although every now and again you recognize elements of your former home. Yes. There's that music stand I've been missing. Yes, there's my backup trumpet, that kind of thing. The lead investigator must decide either to discard a card at random or take 2 horror. Now our horror is 8, so we have got lots of horror to burn actually. I don't really want to discard any of these cards. We can't afford to lose Shriveling because there isn't a backup one, and if we lose Shriveling, our chances of getting through this scenario are reduced significantly, so we are going to take the 2 horror. The horror. The horror. So we take 2 horror. And we're on to Rise of the Ghouls. The floor beneath you is giving way, and you see a vast network of tunnels twisting into the darkness below. Shapes and silhouettes of strange creatures move swiftly through the tunnels, trying to find a way up. You probably don't want to be here when they do. Yes, indeed. Okay. So, we're on to the second agenda already, thanks to Ancient Evils. And speaking of which, it's time to draw another encounter card. Sometimes when you do the Mythos flip, you forget you've actually got to draw an encounter card afterwards. So let's see what the encounter deck has to say. And we get Dissonant Voices. Dissonant Voices, Still Lives. Yes, put it into our threat area. You can't play any assets or events, so that's pretty much everything. I think everything here is an event or an asset, so we won't be playing any of those. We won't be doing any of that this turn. That's okay. We can leave that for another time. So we move into the investigation phase and put 3 actions on Jim. And we first thing we do before we start is spend 2 clues, and we flip the act deck. You notice that the edges of your newly purchased rug are tattered and mud-stained. Finding this odd, you shift the furniture aside and pull back the rug. Too surprised, you see a door leading out of your study. You slowly turn the knob and the door swings open, revealing your hallway below. You climb through the doorway, landing on your feet on the soft dirt. The door to the study slams shut above you. The smell of burning wood fills the narrow hall, intermingled with the scent of rot and decay. Okay, so we put the set-aside hallway, cellar, attic, and parlour into play, discard each enemy in the study, and place each investigator in the hallway and remove the study from the game. Okay, so let's do that. We go whee into the hallway. Study's gone. Bye-bye, study. We can reveal that. Reveal the study. Wrong one. Here we go. The barrier. A glowing barrier blocks the path to your parlour. As you move toward it, intense heat forces you to back away. Picking up a handful of dirt, you toss it at the barrier and watch in horror as dirt incinerates. Oh my god. Dirt's incinerating! Perhaps there's something in the cellar or the attic that can help. Jim taps his chin. Maybe there is. Yeah, maybe I should go to the cellar and the attic. Yes, when the rat hint, not that there's many places to go, so you can't go to the parlour, you're in the hallway, so you actually only have 2 choices anyway. So it's a kind of a hint that, you're going to have to do it anyway, but, it's the opening scenario of the whole game, so I suppose they're just helping people along. When the round ends, investigators in the hallway may, as a group, spend the requisite number of clues to advance. So it's turn 3. So if we're going to get it all done, we've got to get it done by turn 8. So I haven't seen any icy ghouls or anyone yet. So let's hope they turn up sometime soon. So we're here. We're dissonant voiced, so we can't play anything. So we're definitely not going down to the cellar because we're going to need the flashlight. So that really means that we're off to the attic. La-di-da-di-da, off to the attic. Okay, that was 1 action. I'll flip the attic. 2 clues. And indeed, yeah, here we go. Bloody carcass of a malformed beast swings from a meat hook. Interesting how Jim's attic seems to have paint in it. But also it looks like, if this artwork is to be believed, it looks like also Jim not only is a jazz trumpeter, but he's also some kind of a fashion person, dressmaker-y kind of person as well, judging by that mannequin on the left. Man of many talents, clearly. There we go. So after you enter the attic, take a horror. So that's another horror. So we're now taking 3 horror. So this is a slight problem, because if we then draw Rhapsody, the Rhapsody card, it could get nasty. So we've got to remember we can't be sort of rocking 6 horror and thinking it's all right, because that could literally end us. So we really can't take much more horror than we already have. So that was our first action. And so here we are. It's only a 1 shroud. We are a 3 intellect. So I think we just spent 2 turns trying to get these clues. So that's a 1 versus a 3. So that we should comfortably be able to do that. So Chaos Bag says -3, 1 versus 3. Really are having trouble finding these clues this time, aren't we? So that's a fail. Let's try again. 1 versus 3 plus 1. Success. So there we go. We got one of the clues. My goodness, we really are having trouble finding these clues. Let's hope we're better. Let's hope we're better at finding than we are at clue finding. Maybe put your trumpet down, Jim, and focus more on searching more thoroughly. Anyway, we'll get there. So I'm already feeling that Jim's not going to get to where he needs to get to in 8 turns, because those investigators who've done this fast have really gotten through it fast. So I think the best way to get through this is probably to try and hold out as long as possible, get all our systems set up, and hopefully the Icy Ghoul or the Flesh Eater will come along and we can get an extra victory point. You never know. So that's the end of our investigation phase. Let's move into the enema phase. There's no enemies to speak of. So then we move into the upkeep phase and we get the Rabbit's Foot. Nice. I like the Rabbit's Foot a lot. I'm going to spend a couple of goes, I think, putting some things out, because we've got lots of resources. It would be good to have Arcane Studies out, and it would be good to have the Rabbit's Foot, because if we fail a skill test, then we draw a card, which is good. Except, of course, the more cards we draw, we're increasing every time that we're going to actually pull the weakness. So yeah, it's good and it's slightly bad at the same time. That means Dissonant Voices is gone. They've gone, thank goodness. And we're on to the Mythos phase. Yep, Mythos phase, first Doom on Rise of the Ghouls. So yes, things are going a little bit slowly. Already, if we're going to get this done by turn 8, we're already halfway there. So it's looking less and less likely we're going to be able to achieve that in the time that we have. Anyway, let's see what the encounter deck says. Encounter deck has Rotting Remains. Now this would have been good to have Arcane Studies out, because this is about taking more horror. Now this is test 3 and we are a 4. Yes. So, and for each one we fail by, we take a horror. Now we could pitch in Cunning Distraction, but yes, we could pitch in Cunning Distraction as a 2 willpower, which would put us up to 6 versus 3, which I think is pretty good, particularly considering Jim's piece. Or do we keep Cunning Distraction for the Ghoul Priest? The problem is it's 5, so it's very expensive. But we do have emergency cash. Yeah. If we'd had the Arcane Studies out, we could have spent some resources to do that. I feel like because we've got Ritual Candles out and we're already at a 4 versus a 3, I think we should be fine. I hope. If we draw a -4, that would be that wouldn't be good, because then we would we would take quite a bit of horror, but the likelihood of that is low. Although if we use Cunning Distraction, then that puts us up to 6 versus 3. So even if we drew a -4, we wouldn't be too bad. I'm just worried about horror, because of if we draw our weakness, things could be really, really bad. And at the moment, we've got no Peter Silvestri or anything like that to help us out. do we use the cunning distraction or don't we? I can hear you all screaming, use the cunning distraction. I'm going to take the risk. I think the chances are low. So it's a 4 versus a 3. Chaos Bag says -1. What were we worried about? We were worried about nothing. There we go. All fine. 4 versus 3, -1, all good. Okay, we can stop worrying now. Okay, so that's the end of the mythos phase. We move into the investigation phase, and we'll put 3 actions on Jim. So, we've got a couple of choices here. Obviously, we need to get the clue, and we then got 2 choices, which is, do we race down to the cellar and get those clues, and then try to kill the ghoul priest, shrivel the ghoul priest, whatnot, as quickly as possible before turn 8? Or do we try to take our time and hope that either the icy ghoul or the flesh eater pop up, which they really don't pop up very often? Yes. So either way, we need more cards, because if we are going to kill the ghoul priest, we don't have what we need on the board at the moment. So we do need to take some time to set that up anyway, because there's at least 3 cards we would, at least 2 cards we would want, Shriveling and Arcane Studies, we'd want them on the board. I would also like to probably have Rabbit's Foot out as well, although if we get Rosary, then I would replace that with the Rabbit's Foot instead. Yes. So I'm thinking I don't want to come back to the attic and take more horror, to be honest. So I think we might just stay in the attic for the moment. So the first thing I'm going to do is get this other clue. Let's get this other clue. So again, 1 versus 3. Chaos Bag says -3. Oh my goodness. It really is having trouble. I should have brought out the Rabbit's Foot. Anyway, let's do it again. 1 versus 3. Right. So we get the second clue. Really are not having a good run with clues here. That's okay though. We've got the victory point, so I'll just put a damage on the attic. So that's our first victory point. Crowd goes wild. See, the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to spend 2, and I'm going to bring out the Arcane Studies, so that we've got it there. We've got lots of resources. I'm really going to focus now on getting all the cards we need set up, so that we can take on the Ghoul Priest readily, which means getting Shriveling out and having other things out ready to roll. Yep. Okay. So that's the end of the investigation phase. So we again had a frustrating clue getting time, where again we drawing -3s and things. So that was again we failed once. We succeeded with our second clue, and then we brought out the Arcane Studies, which helps us with willpower and intellect, so we can use that moving forward. We move into the enemy phase. There are no enemies to speak of, so we move into the upkeep phase and we get Forbidden Knowledge. So Forbidden Knowledge is a nice asset for getting secrets, getting resources, but I have to say that it's just not viable in a gym deck when you've already taken 3 horror. I mean, for 1 resource, you're taking a horror every time. And then, I mean, it's possible, I suppose, that, you know, if we really need to bring out the Cunning Distraction, but the problem is that we can't. We've got to be met. We've got to realize that we could be hit with 2 or 3 horror at any time. So even though we've got 8, if we draw that Rhapsody, it could get very dicey. So that makes Forbidden Knowledge a problematic card to use. So I think the Intellect pip is probably more important. We can use that to maybe get Leader Chandler on board, something like that. So we'll see how we go. Okay, so we move into the Mythos phase. So there's now 2 Doom on Rise of the Ghouls. We've still got a bit of way to go there. it's time to see what the encounter deck is going to give us. And the encounter deck gives us another Ancient Evils. So that's another Doom on the... That's the second one we've drawn. So that's making it even more difficult to get through this fast, because that's taken us to halfway already. There we go. So, yeah, things moving apace for old Jim. So now the investigation phase. Let's put 3 actions on Jim. Right, so here we are. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to spend 3. I'm going to bring out the Shriveling, and that will have 4 charges on it. That's our first action. Our second action, I'm going to spend another resource and bring out the Rabbit's Foot. We really using up our slots here. Both hand slots. We've got one of our arcane slots, and we've got our is it necklace slot, whatever. We've got them all set up. So yeah, that's our second action. And for our third action, I am literally going to play Emergency Cash, because I'm hoping, I know it's a long shot, but if we get the Hungry Ghoul, that would be awesome. So I'm bringing this out. We get 3 resources. So we've got lots of resources. 1, 2, 3. Okay, 4 resources. So lots of resources. So that was really a kind of an establishment kind of phase. We brought out the Shriveling. We're ready then for the Ghoul Priest. We've got the Rabbit's Foot, so even if we fail a skill test, we can draw a card. We've got Arcane Studies out, which is really synergizes nicely with Shriveling. Ritual Candles is really helpful as well. And then we've got the knife, so we don't have to use Shriveling if we get some kind of monster coming out. So we're all set up. So the only thing is we're going to have to lose the knife if we go down to the cellar to investigate and get the clues there. Alright, so that's our turn. That was turn 5. So we move into the enemy phase. There are no enemies to speak of. It's been an enemy-free scenario so far. And we get Ward of Protection, which is a nice card to get. We don't really want to be taking any more horror, so really, yeah, this is really going to be likely to be used for its wildcard pip more than anything. So I can see here some sort of scenario where we're cunning, distracting, and getting Leech of Chandler on board. But we'll just have to see how we go. All right, we move into the 4th phase here of the Rise of the Ghouls. So we're now over halfway, or about halfway. We've got lots of we've got Rabbit's Feet around our neck. We've got Shriveling in play. We've done our studies. We've got candles all over the house. We've got a knife in hand. We're ready for anything. We just need something. The encounter deck has here we go. Grasping Hands. Okay. Test 3. For each point you fail by, take a damage. Well, I'm less worried about that. We have a 2. Now, do I pitch something in for this? Do we just fail it and then we can draw a card? I mean, we've got 7 health. Yeah. I'm going to just go for it and see what we get. So, Chaos Bag says -3. Oh my goodness, we're really, so let's just work this out. So it was a test of 3 versus 2. So that's -3. So yeah, we take 3. We lose 3 health. Let's put 3 damage. There we go. Yes, so that was quite nasty, but we've still got plenty of health, so it's not the end of the world. We really have been getting some bad draws. You know, this is the thing. You know, Jim's ability with the skull token, or even having the magic candles out. That's okay in theory, but we've actually not been drawing symbols at all. We've just been drawing -3s and -4s and things. So it's been a rather strange scenario. There we go. Okay. All right. So here we are at the investigation phase. We put 3 actions on Jim. Yeah, so... did we fail? Yes, we failed a test there, didn't we? After you fail a skill test, exhaust Rabbit's Foot and draw a card. Yes, I didn't forget. Thank you. All these people are typing into YouTube going, you forgot the Rabbit's Foot. Oh, yeah, dude, no, you remembered. So, there we go. Okay. Right. Well, I think we go down to the cellar. So there we go. We go down. That's 1 action. Go down again. 2nd action. We're in the cellar. Dunk, dunk, dunk. Ow! We trip on the bottom stairs and go tumbling into a pile of skulls, scratch ourselves up a bit, and have to take a damage. So that's 4 damage. Yeah, so here we go. We've now got 3, 5. So we can't really afford to be taking any more damage or anything, because if we get Rhapsody, it's going to get very nasty. Very, very nasty. So here we are in the cellar. I'm loath to bring out the flashlight yet and lose the knife, just in case. But then what else would I do? What else would I do? I guess we could draw for Jim's trumpet. Or do we bring out the flashlight? Or do we... 4 versus 3? We could do a 5. Yeah, 5 versus 3. I might do that. I'm going to put in the unexpected courage, so that's going to give us a 5 versus a 4. Did I say 3? 5 versus 4, so -1 or better to investigate. And the Chaos Bag says, well, there we go. It's actually worked this time. You get a +1 value for this test. So we succeed, and we get the clue. There we go. So we've got all the clues we need to actually... We've got all the clues we need now to get the Ghoul Priest. The problem is, we could go back to the study. We could bring the Ghoul Priest in turn 7, and we could probably kill the Ghoul Priest, given what we've got. But the only problem with that is that we haven't got the other victory points, so we would end up with only 3 victory points, and we would have killed the Ghoul Priest in turn 7, but we won't be top of the table because we'll only end up with 5 experience points. So I'm probably going to wait and get the other clue. There's also a small possibility that the Icy Ghoul, that would be awesome, but the Icy Ghoul actually turns up in the cellar. And if that happened, then we can actually aim for 5 victory points, which would put us at the top of the table. So let's see if that actually happens. So I think for my last action, I might just draw a card. And we get another unexpected courage. Well, that was unexpected. There we go. That's a good card to get. Okay. So, enemy phase. There are still no enemies to speak of. That was our last action. Upkeep phase. We get Fearless. That is a really good card to get. Heal Horror. Good. Excellent. That's really, really good. Like that card a lot. I've got plenty of resources, so I think actually there's no reason why we can't move back to the hallway and go for the Ghoul Priest next go. I think that's probably the way to go, which we'll do turn 7. We'll kill him in turn 8, so we're going to be up there. So even if we're not up there, we'll certainly be up there, even if so I'll see how we go. Okay, Mythos phase. We're now at 5 Doom. It's now turn 7. Let's see what the Chaos Bag has to say. And the Chaos Bag gives us... No, not the... No, not the Chaos Bag, the Encounter deck. And the Encounter deck gives, oh my goodness, another Rotting Remains. Test 3. For each point you fail by, take a horror. Well, we've got fearless here now, so I'm feeling a little bit, and we're a 3 versus a 4, and we can actually bump that up. So I'm actually not feeling so terrible about it. I mean, I could use, you see, I could use water protection. I could cancel that, but then I take a horror. So, you know, I don't really want to take a horror up when I might not need to take anything. So we're at, that's a 3. This is a, and we are a 4. So we can make, so we could pitch in, well, actually, let's pitch in fearless. So that makes us, there we go. What am I thinking of? So we'll pitch in fearless for a start. So that gives us a 5 versus a 3. And then let's just put in a resource. So that's 6 versus a 3. That's pretty good. So we're really there's only really 2 tokens in the whole bag. So let's go with a 6 versus a 3. And the chaos bag says skull. There we go. So we get the skull, which means we can treat it as a 0, or we can treat it as a +1. So we succeed. We heal a horror. Yay! Ah, that's better. And we pass. So there we go. No big deal. Okay. Excellent. All right. Let's move forward to the investigation phase. We put 3 actions on Jim. And here we are down in the cellar. And I think it's just a case of let's get this clue, let's move to the hallway, and let's kill the ghoul priest in turn 8. I think that's the way to go. It's looking like the best thing to do. I think we've got everything we need, as long as we don't miss too many times. I think we'll be okay. So here we are, 4 in the cellar versus 3. 4 versus 3. So I think we pitch in the flashlight and we pitch in forbidden knowledge. So that gives us a 5 versus a 4. And then I think we spend 1 resource. So that's 6. 6 versus 4. Let's see how we go. What's the chaos bag say? Doesn't really doesn't want us to get this. Let's exhaust the rabbit's foot. This is very frustrating. The clue gathering has been very, very hard here. So for our second action, we'll try again. So we're again a 3. It's a 4. So that's throwing the flashlight again. So that's a 4 versus 4. 6 versus 4. Let's see how we go. Chaos bag says 0. Success. Okay, we got the final clue. That was our second action. I think for our third action we move back to the hallway. I think we are going to go for it. If we don't succeed with the ghoul priest, then we don't succeed with the ghoul priest. But I think given what we have, how many resources we have on the table, I think we've got a good chance doing that. So that was again really the clue gathering has been really difficult. This one, there we go. So we've now got both of the victory points. So we just need to kill the ghoul priest now. Okay. So. Enemy phase, there are still no enemies to speak of. We move to the upkeep phase and we get Rite of Seeking, which is, at this stage in the game, is completely useless. I mean, even trying to get Leader Chandler on board, I suppose we could use it for that. But that doesn't feel like a viable option here when we've got things like shriveling in play and things like that. Yes. So that's the upkeep phase. We move into the Mythos phase. We now have 6 Doom on Rise of the Ghouls. Let's see what the encounter deck has for us. And it's another Grasping Hands. So test 3 for each point you fell by, take a damage. And I don't really want to throw in anything here, but I can't. Oh dear. Ugh. I didn't really want to use these because we are a 2. Where's Peter when you need him? You know what? Yes, this is what we're going to do. Yes, I hear you all. Yeah, I'm going to spend a resource. I'm going to bring out the Ward of Protection. It's a non-weakness treachery card. Is it? No, it's not a treachery card. When you draw a non-weakness treachery card, this is a hazard. Oh, treachery. There it is. Yes. So this is a non-weakness treachery card. I just can't afford to lose it. So I'm going to take a horror. The horror. There we go. So we took a horror. Fast play, draw a non-weakness, cancel that card's effect, take a horror. Taking any more physical damage was just too much of a risk, and I didn't really want to pitch in multiple cards and things on that. So there we go. We cancelled it. And I just realised we forgot to bring out the Ghoul Priest. I do that all the time. I forget that we're supposed to bring out the Ghoul Priest at the end of the round, which I would have done. So I'm going to I do that. I really wanted to bring out the Ghoul Priest. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just assume that I did. So I'm going to move those. I'm going to bring the Ghoul Priest out. Sorry about this. I'm going to put Leader Chandler in the parlour so we can flip the parlour. So that's been flipped. So did we do everything we need to do? Using the barrel from the attic, and you carry ice and snow from the cellar, hurl it at the barrier. The barrier sparks and shudders as it consumes the ice, then hisses and fades out of existence. The barrier blocking passage into the parlour has vanished. Reveal the parlour, put Leader Chandler into play, and put the Ghoul Priest in the hallway. That's what I always intended to do. So that's fine. We've now got to defeat the Ghoul Priest. Hello, I'm the Ghoul Priest. I'm going to beat you up to death. And then Leader Chandler, oh, go away with your nasty, nasty devil's music. I don't want to hear any of it. Ooh, no, I'm much more of a Spice Girls fan myself. So here we go. So I do apologise about that. Sometimes I forget that actually I want to... that you've got to bring out the Ghoul Priest at the end, which would have done. Then we would have drawn from the encounter. The Mythos phase would have gone to 6 Doom. We drew from the encounter deck. We nullified that with the Ward of Protection. So that's where we are. Here we are. We've got 3 actions. We've got 3 actions to kill the Ghoul Priest. Okay. So, we've got a few options here. So we're going to shrivel him, obviously. So we're going to spend a charge, which gives us a willpower of 4 versus 4. I'm going to bring this out with 2 willpower, so that gives us a 6 versus a 4 so far. So that's -2 or better on the Ghoul Priest. Do we make it a 7 versus 4? I think we do. So we use a resource. So that's a 7 versus a 4. So we've got to get a -3 or better from the Chaos Bag, and the Chaos Bag is, yes, we succeed. So the Ghoul Priest takes 2 points of damage. Great. Good start. Okay. Let's go again. So we will again shrivel the Ghoul Priest. So that's another 4 versus a 4. We've got no more cards to commit, but we can put in the resources so we can make that a 5, 6. We can make it a 6 versus a 4. So a -2 or better. Chaos Bag says -2. Successful. So that's another 2 damage. So we've only got to do 1 more point of damage to the Ghoul Priest. So we've got a couple of options here. We can shrivel him again for our 3rd action, which will be a 4 versus 4, and we can throw in a resource. Or we could throw the knife. Now, is that better? We're a 3 with the knife. If we throw the knife, that'll make us a 5. So that will give us a 5. I think it's the same, really. I think either way it's the same if we, I think, so we either get 3, 5 versus 4, or we get 4, 5. We get 5 versus 4. So I'm going to shrivel him again. I think I drew a green I should have taken a horror. Let me see. Did I draw the previous time? Draws -2. Draws a cultist. Yes, I should have taken another horror because it says no, it's here. If you draw a cultist, take a horror. Yes, so I should have taken a horror. That's all right. Why is it not giving me a horror? Hello? Yes, there we go. All right, so this is our final turn. Okay, we shrivel him again. We spend a resource, so that gives us a... if only we'd gotten the... If only we'd gotten the rosary. Anyway, that gives us a 5. So this is a little bit more difficult. This is a 5 versus a 4 for the game against the Ghoul Priest. Chaos Bag says -2. We fail. Ouch. So we exhaust the Rabbit's Foot. Take a card. Now we get the Holy Rosary. We take 2 damage and 2 horror from the Ghoul Priest. I think we're dead. No, not that. 6/6. And that's our turn. Ha 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 ha. So that was unfortunate. We got a -2. It was really down to a -1 draw at the very end there. And I think, yes, the Ghoul Priest attacks in the next phase. That was investigation phase. The Ghoul Priest attacks in the enemy phase, and we take another 2/2, so that brings us up to 8 horror and 8 damage, and that's indeed, and we don't have any ways of soaking that up, unfortunately, and so unfortunately Jim goes down to the Ghoul Priest, and takes I guess he could take a physical trauma. I don't think you take a physical and a mental trauma. I just think you take one or the other. So that's where we ended. That was close. We nearly killed the Ghoul Priest. If we hadn't used the Cunning Distraction earlier, the Ward of Protection earlier, we would have succeeded in that. But it seemed at the time that we were going to take more damage than we really needed to risk. So that was really unfortunate. We could have finished the Ghoul Priest in turn 8. It was very, very close, like it has been a few times, but this time didn't work out for poor old Jim. So there we go. Sometimes they win, sometimes they lose. He's still got 2 victory points. So thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate all the watch and likes and subscribes. The table will be up after this video. Next week, like I said, it's Mark Harrigan's turn. Let's hope he has more success than Jim did. And I thank you very much for watching, and see you next time.